a closed boundary. Separate floors can overlap. That's on level 1. I want to do all of my sidewalks like this also. So if I've got a sidewalk outside the building, I'll just make that a different one. And I can make it concrete, generic concrete, or whatever. So make another one of these things. So there's 3 things, and I have some walls and stuff that I was showing y'all how to do up here. Everything can be on level 1. That means it's going to be floating in the air for now. If I want that to sit on the ground, we'll move that to the ground later. Just conceive of it as a nice flat thing. If you really want to get that to the ground for your concept, all you have to do right now is do a negative offset till you get it to the ground. So I can pick this floor and give that an offset of negative 5 feet, and that moves down. So everything can stay attached to level 1. Some of your concepts may require you to go ahead and do that. I think yours probably does. So you can just use the offset tool for now. On the site plan that I gave you, this image is already scaled, so all we're going to do is go over here and copy it. And when we're all set and done, we'll go back to the working view that we're in. And we will say modify to paste align to current view, and it will put that under there. We'll want to be able to see through our topography so we can see that image. To do that, we go VV, topography, transparency. We'll send that somewhere over here. And this is going to be the foundation for what we do on our site. We'll take this out as an image and as a PDF. Notice you can't see my other plan over here, that other floor I made. Why is that? The view depth isn't far enough. So on extent, view range, I would just need to change that to unlimited and unlimited, and then it'll show. And it's also showing me the river because the river is made as a floor, right? So this will be the drawing. This will be the drawing that we do. So if I have walls, go ahead and make these thicker walls so we can see them. If I have walls that don't go all the way to the edge, in other words, this is a big covered patio, you can just leave the floor out there, have the walls just like that. Okay? There's one more step that we're going to have to do before Friday, and that's you need to draw in the extent of your roof with detail lines, and we'll use overhead lines. So my roof might come out like this, and there's the roof. Okay.
Would you be able to see it when you like print it out?
Overhead?
The dash line?
Yeah.
Yeah, detail lines are print. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a few rooms. We do know how to use doors. We'll go ahead and put doors in as you see fit. If I want this to be a glass wall, fine. You remember on glass wall, you can use storefront. Don't use curtain wall, use storefront wall. And that'll be your storefront wall. Don't worry about putting doors in there. You don't know how to do that yet. Putting a door in the storefront is not the same way as putting a door in like this. If I try to put a door in there, it'll tell me no. Okay. I can also turn on shadows if I want. See, there's a weird gap thing happening here because it's floating in the air. If I was doing this over here, the shadows just kind of reinforce the plan of it. So you may or may not want to use the shadows. The other little conundrum that I have is we really need to start designing what the buildings look like and how the buildings are put together, and that's going to have some influence on the site plan. But we're kind of just not there yet. Now, a lot of you have asked me, how do I make this object, this thing, like one of them was a tie rod, maybe it's a bench, or something like that, or let's just say a weird mass, like on yours, where those things meet the ground. There is an easy way to do that, and it's component model in place. You just call them walls, and you've got kind of all those tools that you had in SketchUp to make any weird shape that you want. As an extrusion, if you have to make a solid shape. Do you see how everything I make ought to come in as white? I've made a mess from before when I was showing y'all things. But the site plan shouldn't be any harder than that, I don't think. And all we'll do is Photoshop in the new stuff around this area. So the scale on that, let's take a look at the scale and set the sizes for Friday. One 1/64 will probably work. So we can change our scale on whatever view we're working on. Actually, it looks like 132 should work. Let me look. No, it'll have to be 164. Oh, this is 116. Let me try 132. Yeah, 132. And if I crop the view, I can work in the cropped view. So I don't have to see too much stuff when I'm working. A lot of you, I've noticed, have moved your site. We've like picked it and drug it off like this. So it got moved. If you've done that, just open a new file from the one that I sent you, and we ought to be able to lock this. I don't remember how to lock it. I'll look at how to lock it, but make sure you're not grabbing it. So is anybody having any trouble in Revit drawing floors and walls and doors? Is anybody having any trouble in UR?
No, I just want to ask a question. Unless I should wait till after.
Give me 1 second, then we'll go through
Okay.
questions because we don't have a lot of time. Is anybody having trouble drawing 2D lines? Annotate 2D lines. You can do reference lines this way. You can leave them on the site. They'll print. Leave them on there if you're making them. Don't try to erase them constantly. So those reference lines you can change to any line weight you want to keep. Is anybody having any trouble with regions? Regions might be a good way to go about the parking maybe. If you don't want to make it as a floor, you don't have to, but if I'm going to bring in drive lanes are 25 feet, by the way. I'm trying to show you something here. So there is a tool up here that a lot of you have already found when it comes to trimming. If I trim, I can use this tool right here called a fillet, and I can just set a radius. 10 feet radiuses are common in parking lots. So it just trims it up for me nice and neat. Right here, fillet arc, check radius, and then you can give it a dimension. Okay, whenever that's closed, it says I cannot have overlapping lines. Yes, I do have one. Probably don't want that to be black. Do we not have a solid white?
No.
Okay, to make that a solid white, just edit your solid black, change that to white. And I can just draw in the parking spaces.
There's a parking button on the Massey.
There is.
What's the
Don't use
difference?
it until we know where your parking lot is.
Okay.
So what that is actually doing is setting site features. You're changing the site. Now, how many of you want to transform the topography around your building? Many of you might want to bring up the ground or make a hill or a berm or some kind of edge. Remember, all you have to do is go to site massing. Pick the site, edit surface, and you can put in new points around where you want. So if I want a big hill here, I can take these points. Remember, we've shifted the site, so they're not the same numbers we've put in. But I could take these points and I could raise them all to feet and put in a hill there.
Well,
So you can begin to make site features that show up on your site. Okay? So let's do a little quick review of roofs just in the 10 minutes that we have. I'm going to abandon that hill I made. But those of you dealing with thresholds and edges and senses of entry, you might want to make these kind of features. And you can do them right here, by the way. Just click on Edit Surface in the 3D view, grab that point, and change it. So that's -5, I'll change it to 10, and it'll go 10 feet above the floor. Can add new ones the same way.
have you ever
Yeah.
thought of being a YouTuber for this?
It's a lot more work
I think you'd make a lot of money.
So I do plan on doing supplemental videos for this, but we've got to get to a point where I can give you smaller bits. So in other words, after we kind of understand roofs, I can do a video on how to manage the nuances of the roofs, how to put two pieces together. But right now, nobody knows what shape roof you're doing, so every time y'all slap a roof on it, it's a hip roof because that's the default condition. You have to have some intent in this project before I can really help with the Revit, right? Otherwise, you're just doing what Revit is showing you to do. So all the tools that we covered, we're going to go back over in finer detail once we have a building. It's really hard to talk about walls, windows, and doors and roofs when we don't have any design intent established. So y'all have to help me get there. The last 2 weeks, I feel like we've been spinning our wheels on this site plan, and for me, I don't know why it's been so hard. Why don't we have site plans done? Help me. Is it the concept stuff on a bigger scale that's been slowing everybody down?
Yeah.
But we've talked about, this is day 4 that we've talked about the concepts, yeah?
The program's a lot bigger.
The program is bigger, but it's the same as all the other sections. And it's a third the size of Mir's section. Okay, but I mean, if we're just working in this kind of two-dimensional realm this week, we're still working on 3D things. But if we can just understand the two-dimensional relationship, the parts, then we can move forward. Does everybody feel comfortable with this part?
Yeah.
Having a pin up with the site plan that shows all the walkways and everything and the parking is going to be a big step. So if I just have some buildings scattered on the site, that's not good enough. I need to see every walkway. If I'm going to have a sidewalk that connects these buildings and a bridge piece, I need to be able to see it built on the site.
For our floor plans, do you want it tagged or just leave it like presentation
Don't
style?
tag anything, but if you room labels would probably be really helpful.
How do you do that?
So this is the conundrum I'm in. There's a right way to do it, and there's an easy way to do it. To do it the right way, we have to know, we have to really have some understanding of where our rooms are, and it makes it very difficult to move things if you make things into rooms. So let me show you the right way to do it, and then I'll show you how I want you to do it this week.
Okay.
So we go architecture room. A room will tag into anything that's enclosed. But what I've just done is I've made, those are not enclosed. Let me make one that's in. See this invisible box? It's assigning a room there. That's on a different plate. This one's enclosed. If I go architecture room, none of them are enclosing properly. Okay, here's how it's supposed to work when I actually have it done right. See how it makes a room around an enclosed space? That invisible thing that you'll never see again, that's the room. So the way I want you to do it, rather than use the room tool, because there's a layer there you have to understand that's invisible, I just want you to use the annotate text without a leader. I can change the text size here. That'll be good enough. It feels like we have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time left. So those of you whose site plan is settling down, you should start thinking about your buildings in section and exactly how you want to put it together. So just design it on paper. And once you have it designed on paper, then we can take it into Revit. So the more complete the design is before we get to those steps in Revit, the better it's going to be. It's a little bit different than SketchUp. In SketchUp, it's a freer to explore what we do. In Revit, if you want to do a roof that's a curve like this, there's only 2 ways to do that. There aren't an unlimited number of ways to do that. If you're doing the roofs already, remember we've got 2 roofs, roof by footprint and roof by extrusion. Roof by footprint is fine as a placeholder, even if you think you need to do something complex. And all you should do is draw the roof around it. And don't really worry about anything else except its level. It should be on level 2. So they're not cutting through your plan. And many of you I've seen struggling with the roofs. When you automatically do the roof, it'll have all these triangles on it, and that'll make a hip roof. But just turn them off if you don't know what the slope is. And what I see you doing is trying to click on that arrow, click on the angle. You can't click on the angle, all you have to do is click on the line. And then uncheck it. So I've seen people literally click on this until they crash their computer. Click on the line. You can change the slope there if you want. So the controls pop up here. And you can use these offset tools to move them up and down. If you want to use columns at this point, just to define spaces, some of you columns are important. You can use the architectural column tool. Just use architectural columns, not structural columns. And use a square column for now. We can make other columns later. Okay? I'll show you how to make a column as a component, just a model in place component. It's real easy. You can just model in place a component. You can see our column. So the hard part, and I'm not going to show you today, with the roofs is how do I put 2 different roofs together and trim them out. I showed you that the last time we did a Revit day. I'll do that again. How many of you have curved walls? A third of you do probably. A roof can go on a curved wall. So these roofs on a curve Let me just go ahead and do two real quick. I'll do one like that, and I'll do one that's opposite. Like that. So we can just do roof, and I can pick the wall or the lines. And I can make the curved side slope or the straight side slope. Oh, can't make that one. Let's just slope one side. And that one would be one we'd have to intersect. And then let's do there they are. So curved roofs are relatively easy to do if they're singly sloped. If they're doubly sloped, we just have to make two roofs and intersect them and trim them. It's not the end of the world. So are there questions about the program? I think if you have clear intent, the site plan game should be relatively easy. Should be relatively easy to do. If you don't have intent, it's going to be harder. Did the site visit help today? Remember that sidewalk kind of turned into gravelly stuff here, and this is kind of where we were standing, looking right at the acequia right here on the edge, and we parked just over here. So whenever we stood here and we said there's the corner of that fence post, that's way back here. Does anybody need me to show you how to do a roof by extrusion in the next few minutes? Some of you probably do. You know how to do it. Does anybody else need to do a weird shaped roof? Yours are triangles.
Well, it's passive.
Well, right, but those aren't going to be curved shaped. Let me show you real quick how to do a roof. I'll do a curved roof on this. First step, I have to have an elevation. How do I get an elevation? No.
You go to view.
I go to view, elevation, and I want an exterior building elevation there. Put that right there. Jump to the view. Now I can see my building. Then I would go architecture, roof by extrusion. I have to pick a face by which the shape is going to sit on. And then all I have to do is, I don't think people should be making funky shaped roofs for no reason, but there it is. And if I click on it, I have toggles that I can pull it back on.
It's like Santa's sled. Or maybe Aladdin's carpet. Oh, wait.
And I can just attach the walls to it.
and just pierces through the wall.
How do I get rid of the trees that are in my way? Click on them. Demolish at new construction.
Could you place trees like where you want them?
Yep. And they would just be new trees rather than existing trees. So if I want new trees, that tree ought to come in as a new tree, not an existing tree. And if I look on my site plan, it'll actually be a different color. The existing, oh, I have the view set. Something else. Then they'll turn in gray and the new one will be black. So this is actually how we're going to get our gray lines as an underlay in our site. So it'll be just like this. So on Wednesday, we're going to spend 1 hour getting this into Photoshop and getting it cleaned up for the presentation on Friday. I'm going to go ahead into Blackboard and put the Friday presentation in. And I will include this link. This is 902.